How you doing? This is Brother T. If you want to support the channel, we have t-shirts and other merch right there in the description. Just hit the link.
You were a star child, let your light shine for all the world. When you open your mouth to reveal a pearl, let it shine more, just to light the path. If it don't add up, man, just do the math. If it ain't for you, let it pass on through.
How you doing? This is Terrion Wilson, aka your boy Brotha T, here with another one. So we like to call this channel T's Life Tree, and on this channel we like to give you little pine cones of wisdom. If you don't know what that is, stick around, stay on the channel, you'll get it. Before we get started, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to like and subscribe. If you haven't already, do it. Hurry up, man. Because when you like and subscribe, we can continue to give you these pine cones of wisdom. So today we're going to talk about Dark Night of the Soul. And this one's going to be a deep one, so get ready. All right. So, you know, Dark Night of the Soul. Woo. So a lot of us, no matter who you are not exempt from going through tragedies in your life. And sometimes it's not just tragedies, but bad days, right? We all have bad days. We all have bad weeks. We all have bad months. But every now and then you have that life-changing event, you know, that happens for the worse. Okay. That thing that just devastates us and almost make you to the point where you want to curl up into a little ball, and some of you want to curl up into that little ball and die, right? And that's not coincidence. If you look at the world the way a person like me does, you'll know that everything works together. Like everything in your life, nothing. I don't believe in coincidence. I really don't believe in happenstance. I really don't believe in that. I think everything that happens in your life happens for a purpose, even if it seems like it was a coincidence. I believe it was all orchestrated. That's the way I believe, okay? You don't have to personally believe it. And I don't even use the word believe a lot, but that's the way I think. Those are the thoughts that I hold to. Now, you don't necessarily have to hold to those thoughts, whether you do or whether you don't. I think we're all in agreement that sometimes tragedies happen in our lives, right? You're not going to disagree with that. So what is Dark Night of the Soul? I'm getting there. So when you go through these tragedies, how do you deal with them, right? And I'm talking about the big tragedies. I'm talking about the divorces, you know, when you're in a committed relationship and somebody just leaves all of a sudden, they don't tell you why, stuff like that. Or it could be anything, you know, it could be a death of a child, you know, it could be anything. And tragedies happen in our lives, and God forbid, all of you out there, you know, me being a parent, that's, you know, I don't want to imagine it, and I'm sure you don't either. And if you've been through it, I'm really terribly. You have my condolences. You have my condolences, and my thoughts and prayers are with you if you've been through that. So, what is Dark Night of the Soul? And some of you have been through it before. It's that moment where, or not, I shouldn't even say moment, it's several moments. Sometimes it's nights. Sometimes it can be a night. Sometimes it can be many nights. You can go through it for a week. You can go through it for a month. But it's that time, when that life-changing event happens for the worst. It's that purging that you go through, that emptying of your soul. That's why they call it Dark Night of the Soul. And it'll hit you just out the blue sometimes. And it doesn't have to happen at night. It just happens that they call it that because a lot of times it will happen at night, but it can happen throughout the day too as well. Like somebody might have up and left you for no reason. You don't know why. They just disappeared. Or maybe it was a marriage you were in for 10 years and the person just left and went off with his secretary or with her personal trainer or something, and who knows, right? And you really like, why did they do it to me? And then all of a sudden you get this overwhelming urge to just cry, whether you're a man, woman, whatever. Sometimes if you're a man, you gotta hide it from everybody else, right? That's society for you. But you just curl up, man, and it's just it hurts. You can actually feel it all through your body. How do I know all this stuff? Because I went through the Dark Night of the Soul, and oftentimes You need that stuff because I mentioned before, it's like a purging. So what's a purging? A purging is when you get the toxins out of you. So a lot of those feelings, that codependent feeling maybe, or that feeling of low self-worth, right? Why would they leave me? Like, what's wrong with me? Am I not good enough? Why, how come nobody wants me? You get into that feeling, and it takes over your whole body, right? And you might cry for the whole night, and you might get to a point where you don't even know why you're crying. Like, you'll cry, you'll stop and say, okay, I'm good now. And then tears will keep coming in anyway. And the dark night of the soul is nothing to play with. And we've all either been through it or you will. You just haven't yet. Now, I touched on it before, but I just want to reiterate that this is necessary for your healing and for your spiritual growth. There's no way you can grow spiritually without going through some type of dark night of the soul, not from something, of that magnitude, right? So in other words, a lot of religious people, they do have a dark night of the soul. Now, they might twist the words and call it a testimony, right? But something tragic happens, it wakes them up. They might go through that whole purge period, might involve tears, might not, and then they end up being more spiritual. And so it happens. But this is necessary for your spiritual growth. It's necessary. If you do not have this dark night of the soul, especially when something hits you that's super tragic, that means you might not have been through the stages of grief. There's 5 stages of grief. And we'll talk about that on a whole nother program. I have to devote a whole program to that, because that's another thing that most people on this planet, if you are over a teen, if you made it to adulthood in any kind of way, you probably, if you haven't gone through the 5 stages of grief, you probably will, because you're going to end up losing somebody. It's a part of life. It's the natural cycle of what goes on. What happens after you go through this purging period? Sometimes you'll go through a period where you'll start eating healthier, right? Out of the blue. You won't even know why. You just want different things. You might want all green vegetables. You might not want meat at all. You might go vegan out of the blue, right? After this certain dark night of the soul, you'll start getting rid of bad friends. In other words, you're cleansing your life. You're becoming more spiritual. Now it's hitting home and connecting for a lot of you out there because you've been through the dark night of the soul. If not, you're going through it now, right? Because I said it can happen in one night. It can happen through over a course of weeks. It can happen over a course of months. It might happen for a couple of years. You don't know. So these are some of the things that happen after you start going through it. Sometimes you get a feeling of being lost or not fitting into a box. All right. And when I say placed into a box, I'm talking about societal norms, things that people expect you to do, things that people try to tell you are when you know, hey, that's not me. Now, when I went through my knowledge of self, I definitely had to go through that feeling as well. I went through the eating habit thing, still going through that, right? And I went through the not fitting in phase as well. So when we talk about the dark night of the soul and what comes after, that's when you start getting towards that lighter side. That's when you start getting towards that better understanding of what spirituality is. You start to understand it more. All right. So what else happens? You start trying to impress people less, right? And you want to connect to people on a more genuine level. If you start to really pay attention to your life and pay attention to the connections we make through our lives, not really close friends, but I would say associates, and you start to know, or sometimes friends too, depending on the person, and you'll start noticing that you guys really don't have a connection. It's more surface level. Every conversation is about something on the surface. It's never a deep conversation. The real tragedies in your life you don't really bring to this person, and vice versa. When you start to take account and take a real good tally of the connections in your family, and sometimes they're family members as well, you'll see that you'll have a few connections that you never connected on a genuine level with. It's surface stuff. It's like, I know you're an associate. Hey, I know you, but you know, when it comes to really connecting on a real level, you'll be surprised if you do an audit how many people you can cut out and won't miss them. That's all I'm trying to say. When you try too hard to impress people in a way, just my opinion, that's like a manipulation tactic. You know, when you're not being yourself and you're conscious that you're not being yourself, you're trying to manipulate them into liking you more. So anyway, so in other words, you're the bad person in that situation. You get what I'm saying? And of course, I'm not calling you a bad person, and I'm just kind of like putting it in a softer type of way. But I do want you to be aware of that, right? What am I saying? I'm saying be yourself. That's all I'm saying. That's the simple explanation. Always be yourself. Don't be somebody else to impress somebody else. Okay? We all know by now, if you've been watching episode after episode, you know that I do not subscribe or I do not call myself a Christian. But at the same time, I'm not afraid to be who I am in front of anybody. So if they ask me if I'm a Christian, I say no. Right? And you say, well, you should do that, right? You will be surprised. Now, if you were brought up in certain religions and you one day don't subscribe to it, somebody asks you, when you first do it and you're not comfortable within yourself, sometimes some people, I'm not saying all, some people will lie and say, yeah. Or they'll kind of soften it. Well, I believe in a little bit, or they'll say, well, I don't really go to church, but or some people will say, well, I'm spiritual, I'm more spiritual, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just being bold and no, that's me. Like, that's me. And it takes being comfortable within yourself to answer that question comfortably, and, you know, being aware that you might get judged right after. But as long as you're open to it and you're being yourself, then so be it. All right, so let's get back to some of those things that happen after the dark night of the soul. You start gravitating towards spirituality, right? And you start your ego death. Very important. You cannot go through the dark night of the soul and get to the other side, which is the lighter side, the side you want to get to, without having an ego death. Okay, so what is your ego? And when we talk about ego death, sometimes you need your ego, right? We talk about you needing your shadow side at times. Okay, that can be tied to your ego as well. Sometimes you need that ego, right? You can't be confident in who you are without a smidgen of ego. But what we're talking about, ego death, we're talking about that side that keeps you unable to learn new things, to open you up to spiritual teachings or any kind of teachings, right? Because your ego can stop you from being a better person. Your ego can stop you from getting to a knowledge of self, right? If you have too much of an ego. So that part has to die. In order to bring in the new, in order to ascend spiritually, you cannot have a big giant ego in the way, because a lot of getting to know yourself and getting the knowledge of self, you're tearing your ego down because you're learning things about yourself that you probably weren't aware of, or things that you were aware of that you never wanted to fix just because you didn't want to fix it. It worked for you, right? Let's say, for instance, part of what you had to put away, let's say you were a drug addict, right? And you wanted to get away from using drugs. Now, your ego might step in and keep you on those drugs, right? Even though you know you need to put them down. All right, you want to go more towards a spiritual path. You want to go more towards a religious path, you know, and you want to put those drugs down. But your ego might tell you, hey, you know, I want to stop this. I want to go there, but yeah, man, I got to get that one more hit. I got to get that feeling again. That's your ego telling you this, right? Hey, man, let's just do it one more time. Hey, you can quit anytime you get ready. We've all heard that. Some of you addicts know that voice in your head. You've heard it before. I can quit anytime I get ready. Let me go and get another one right quick, and next week we're gonna stop, right? That's your ego telling you this. That's your ego. Whenever somebody is so arrogant and thinks they know everything, some people think I'm like that, but I'm really not. I try to take as much information as possible. Now, I do try to stay in the state of perfecting, but that's different from trying to be perfect. Okay, perfecting means you want to be the best version of yourself. So I'm always going to be that way. But part of that, I can take in new information. So if you know more than me on a subject and you can teach me, I'm going to sit down and learn that lesson because it's going to make me better. And so once you stop trying to get better, then you have a large ego stopping you from doing that. So what am I saying? You can't get to that next level. You can't ascend spiritually until you have that ego death. Now, why did I spend so much time on ego death? Because it's one of the biggest reasons why people can't live cleaner lives out there. Their ego is stopping them. Okay? So it's very, very, very important for you to kill that ego. You ever, and this is for the ladies out there, you ever meet that man and he might be looking good, he might be smelling good, he might even have a smooth way in which he talks to you, right? And you say, oh man, I like this, guy or whatever. And you ever spend some time with him and you find out after a few minutes like, oh, he's full of himself, right? So there you go. Put that in the context of what I'm saying, right? That's only going to get you so far. So in the scenario I just gave you with the lady, with the guy, it's only going to get the guy so far, looking good, smelling good, talking good, but he's going to mess it up, right? Because he's unwilling to open up and let the other person be a part of the conversation. And it just shows itself. And that happens in our everyday lives when we're not open to new information coming in and becoming better at something, or whatever. Now, this is one of the perks that you get personally when you go through that dark night of the soul and you start ascending spiritually. You'll start to unlock spiritual gifts. What do I mean by spiritual gifts? Well, I'll probably have to go personal on this a little bit. So some of my spiritual gifts, my throat chakra started opening. Believe it or not, if you go back in my past, I would say as recent as 4 years ago, maybe, I had a problem communicating, right? I had a problem sticking up for myself even. Like I would stick up for myself, but it would be in a different way. Like I would let stuff get so far, and I just wouldn't say stuff because I'm like, I don't feel like arguing today. Like I'm not even into arguing. You know what I mean? And then I had to learn to do that. And one of the ways I learned to do that is to go through the dark night of the soul and realize that stuff was working against me. And naturally, there's something called your throat chakra. It opened up and I just started talking better, right? And even on YouTube, right? I can convey myself a lot better than I could years ago. I have videos on the channel, not on this channel, I'm sorry. If you go to T's Money Tree, YouTube channel. Wait till this video's over though. Go to T's Money Tree video channel, YouTube channel, I'm sorry, and then look for those very early videos and you'll see that I'm talking totally different, right? Not the same speech patterns, same guy, same voice, and some of the same knowledge, but I'm talking different, right? It wasn't activated. Once the throat chakra got activated, now I can't shut up. Now you're watching these videos and like, I wish he would wrap it up. I wish he'd go to the next thing so we can get this video over with, right? So it gets to that point, and that's in other aspects of your life, right? Other aspects of your life. You can unlock your intuition, right? Now, some people can take this and you can say being psychic, right? Some people, you might unlock the fact that you're a good tarot card reader. You might be an intuitive tarot card reader. You might be an actual psychic. You might be a medium. I don't know. Those are some of the gifts, right? But those are some of the more spiritual gifts, and you'll start unlocking them. That's if you go through that dark night of the soul, you get to that after effect, and then you'll start noticing. And some people, some people develop singing voices. They never could sing before. Their throat chakra open up, their heart chakra open up, and all of a sudden they could carry a note better. Now, I'm not going to say that you're going to sound like Screech from Saved by the Bell one day, and then the next day you're Luther Vandross. That's not what I'm saying. But you'll notice you can carry a note better just because you're more comfortable with yourself. And this happens. Those are gifts that actually happen. People go through that stuff. So let's go. Let's wrap it up. So you'll start stepping into your new self. You won't be afraid to step into the new you. Now, I touched on this earlier when I said you have that knowledge of self and you're not afraid to tell people who you are. You'll also start seeking a higher vibration, higher vibrational thinking, and you'll start seeking your purpose. You'll do this naturally a lot of times, right? All right, now you do have to do the work. It's not going to be done for you. No matter what, you will have to hunker down and do the work. There's no ways around that. There's no shortcuts, right? And if you don't do the work, guess what might happen? And if you don't do the work, guess what might happen? You have to repeat that process over again. You might go through another dark night of the soul. You might end up with the same type of person if that's the reason that brought about the first dark night of the soul. See what I'm saying? If you do not do that spiritual work, if you do not ascend, if you do not get to the point where you have that ego death, you'll repeat the same things because you haven't learned the lesson. The whole thing in it is to learn the lesson. If you do not learn the lesson, you will not grow. I don't care who you are. Let's say, for instance, you have a marriage. The marriage didn't go well. We could say the other side was abusive, right? So they up and leave because they're tired of abusing you, or vice versa. You might leave, you're tired of them abusing you. If you do not learn your spiritual lesson, no matter if you are the abuser or the abusee, if you do not learn the spiritual lesson, you will repeat that more than likely in a different way. Even the one might be physically abusive. You leave him, you can't take it anymore. You meet a guy, you say he's totally different from him, and he might be emotionally abusive, still abuse. So what happens there? You didn't learn the lesson. The only lesson you learned is I don't like getting punched in the face. Now you're getting punched in your mind and your heart. Okay? You just switched abuse. You just switched the type of abuse. What happens when you learn the lesson? When you learn the lesson, you go from that guy that was abusive, physically, mentally, whatever. And now when you meet this other guy, you'll see it right away, because sometimes your spiritual gifts will be on display and intuition will kick in like something not quite right with this dude. He seems like he's just doing something ain't quite right. You get what I'm saying? It doesn't have to even be that. You just make better choices because you're more aware. You're more self-aware. You know you haven't earned the right to be beat on. You've earned the right to be cherished because you're now loving yourself. Once you start loving yourself, you're going to draw in that love from somebody else. You can't get love from anybody else, not legitimate, genuine love, without loving yourself first, right? Because if you don't love yourself, you'll go for anything. Anything can happen to you. And this is a fact. So let me wrap it up. Seek high vibrational thinking and seek your purpose on this earth, your destiny. This is a hot video, family, and I went ham on part of it. I know I did, but it's very important, and it's very important not to miss going through the dark night of the soul after something really tragic goes on in your life. And a lot of times you're not going to bring it about yourself. It's just going to happen. So when it happens, embrace it. Get the cry out. The sun will come out tomorrow. It's going to be a brand new day, and you will be a brand new you, or at least start that new process of becoming the brand new you and ascending spiritually. This is your man, Brotha T, and I enjoyed this one, family. I really enjoyed this one. I might look at this one myself over and over again, right? I'll come back with a new video soon, family. Thanks for stopping through. Peace. I don't take it for granted. Thanks for watching.